The question is, draw the projections of a cube of 60 mm edge resting on one of its corners on HP when the body diagonal of the cube is perpendicular to VP. So now we are going to construct the three-dimensional geometry of this question. For that, initially we have to consider two vertically perpendicular planes, VP and HP. VP represented in blue color here, then HP represented in green color. Now this one is the case of a cube and its dimension is given as 60 mm. So these edges and height will be 60 mm. Now for geometrical representation we are going to name all these coordinates. Let these top coordinates are A, B, C, D and bottom coordinates are E, F, G and H. Now in order to get the front view corresponding to initial stage, we have to observe the cube from the front side, and for getting the front view in vertical plane we have to project all the top coordinates into the vertical plane. Also we have to project all the bottom coordinates into the vertical plane. Now we will get one rectangle here, and this rectangle represents the front view of the cube. Then similarly for getting top view we have to observe the object from the top side. So for getting top view we have to project all the top coordinates and bottom coordinates to the horizontal plane, and now we will get one square like this, and this square represents the top view corresponding to the initial position. Then in second stage it is given that the cube is tilted with respect to one of its base coordinates. Now let us assume that we are going to tilt the cube with respect to the base corner G. Now this point is G. So another point given in the question is, so when we rotate this cube with respect to one of the base coordinates, its body diagonal should be perpendicular to the vertical plane. So in this case, which one will be the body diagonal of the cube? So if we consider the coordinates E and C, so just remember this one. We have named the top coordinates are A, B, C and D. So this point is C and this bottom corner is E. So when we draw a line joining these two opposite corners, that one will be the body diagonal. Now in question it is given that when we rotate the cube with respect to one of the base corner, its body diagonal should be perpendicular to the vertical plane. So in second stage here we have rotated the cube with respect to corner G in such a way that this body diagonal is perpendicular to the vertical plane. Here which one is the body diagonal? So from this figure you can see that this one is corner C and this one is corner E. So when we observe the object in such a way that the bottom corner G is resting on HP and the body diagonal CE is perpendicular to VP. So this is the final condition. And similar to the initial stage, for getting the front and top views of first stage of the cube, when it is tilted along its base corner G, and in that condition the body diagonal CE will be parallel to this vertical plane. This is the body diagonal CE. If you draw a straight line between the corners C and E, that is the body diagonal. So in that case, body diagonal CE is parallel to vertical plane. Similarly, corresponding to the initial stage, for getting the front views, we have to extend all the corners, all the top and corners to the vertical plane. We'll get one rectangle this one, like this one, and this one represents the front view of the second stage. And for getting top view, again we have to consider all the corners, project that corners to the horizontal plane, then we will get one shape like this one. So from this figure we can see that the outer edges are represented in thick colors, thick lines, and the bottom edges, these are the bottom edges. You cannot see that bottom edge when we are looking from the top side, so it is to be represented in dotted lines. Then during the last step, this is the final condition. The point which is resting on ground plane is G. Now this is corner C and this is corner E. This is the body diagonal line. That body diagonal line, in this case this one is perpendicular to the vertical plane. So this one is the final condition of the figure. So corresponding to the previous two stages, for getting front and top views, project all the top corners to the vertical plane and bottom corners to the vertical plane, join this one. So when we are observing from front side, the outer edges are visible. That is why all the outer edges are drawn in thick lines. And again, when we consider the back side corners, these are not visible, so we have to represent that back corners which are not visible as dotted lines. And for getting the top view, again we have to observe the object from the top side. This one will be the top view. Again project the top and the bottom corners to the horizontal plane, then join all that corners. Here also the outer edges will be visible, so it can be represented in thick lines, and the backside corners will not be visible, and therefore these lines can be represented in dotted lines. So this is the three-dimensional representation of the question. Now we are going to draw all these cases in a 2D plane, and for that consider the intersection of the vertical plane and horizontal plane as xy line. This is the straight line, and initially we have to represent the adjacent corners which is equally inclined to vertical plane, and these are the top corners A, B, C and D, then bottom corners in bracket E, F, G and H. All these corners, bottom corners are shown inside the bracket because this will not be observed, cannot visible these corners when we are observing the cube from the top sides, and the top corners are all are visible A, B, C and D, so it has to be represented outside the bracket. So all this distance equal to 60 mm. For constructing the edges, it is given as 60 mm edge length. Now these are the diagonal, body diagonal EC. So we are going to draw the front view corresponding to the initial stage. So for that I already explained, we have to project all the corners to the xy line. So these are represented in dotted lines. Then join all the corners like A dash, B dash, C dash, then G dash, H dash, E dash. So when you are observing from front side, these bracketed corners are not visible, and the letters which are provided outside the bracket will be visible when we are looking from front side. That is the representation. Then now we are going to draw a straight line joining the opposite corners E dash and C dash. Now this E dash, C dash represent the body diagonal, and during the next stage we will rotate this cube with respect to the base edge E, because here we are represented G in bracket, that means G is the bottom point, and we have to tilt the cube with respect to the point G. So corresponding to G, the front view is G dash, Then corresponding to E and C, the front views are E dash and C dash. Now we have already drawn the body diagonal E dash C dash. Then draw another line from G dash to this body diagonal. So it will be at an angle 90 degree, and the intersection point is represented by O dash. So during next stage we will tilt this cube with respect to the base edge G. What will happen is the body diagonal comes in parallel condition. That means E dash C dash should be parallel to XY line. So this is the second condition. From this figure you can see that the body diagonal E dash C dash is parallel to XY line. Now this one is G dash O dash, which will be perpendicular to XY line. Now from the previous figure you will get all these dimensions F dash, E dash, A dash, C dash, D dash, etc. Then measure all dimensions from the first front view and mark all these dimensions, all these corners, then join these corners. So now the rectangle will be inclined in such a way that this G dash O dash is perpendicular to E dash C dash, or E dash is C dash is parallel to XY line. This is the second stage. Now for getting the top view of the next stage, we have to draw the projection lines from all the top and bottom corners in the downward direction, and we have to draw the projections of the first top view in the rightward direction. Now we'll get points, the intersection of F and F dash as F1, E and E dash E1, H and H dash H1, etc. A1, B1, C1, D1, P1, G1. So all these corners are obtained by joining the projections from first top view and second front view. Now this is the condition. Then next step is, as per the question, when we rotate the cube with respect to the corner G, the body diagonal should be perpendicular to the VP plane. Now here the body diagonal is already represented by the line E dash C dash or EC. Now in final stage these points, so from here you can see the point E1 and C1. This is the body diagonal, and this body diagonal is perpendicular to the XY line. This is the XY line. Now E1 C1 is perpendicular to XY line. That means the body diagonal E1 C1 is presently perpendicular to the vertical plane. Now from the previous figure, from the previous top view, we will get all the dimensions D1 H1 A1 E1 B1 F1, then B1 C1 C1 D1. We will get all these dimensions, measure all these dimensions and transfer in such a way that the body diagonal E1 C1 is perpendicular to XY line, initial condition. Then mark all these corners, then join the corners. So now this dotted lines represents the edges which are not visible when we are observing the cube from the top side, and this thick lines represents the outer edge of the cube when we are observing from the top side. These are visible. And again, for getting the top front view of the final stage, you have to draw the projections from all the top and bottom corners in the upward direction perpendicular to XY line. Then again extend the projections of the first position, first top view in the rightward direction. Now the intersection of all these corners, example H1 H1 dash, then G1 G1 dash, E1 E1 dash represents joining of all these lines will give H1 dash G1 dash, F1 dash E1 dash B1 dash, A1 dash D1 dash, etc. Then join all these corners. Also when we are observing from front side, all the outer edges will be visible, so it can be represented by thick lines, and the back side corners will not be visible, so that can be represented by dotted lines. So this is the final front view of the question, and this one is the final top view of the question.